My name is Jeff. I'd rather not share my full name or age if you don't mind. I don't have an occupation. I just live in an abandoned house from someone that died in during the 2022 pandemic. I grow my own food in the farmland I developed. I was a former inmate. Since I escaped from prison, I basically have just survived on my own and no family that survived, no friends because it's impossible to meet anyone these days. And when you do, you always have to worry if they have it.
Have what?
SARS. Every now and then you get people going out, the hungries, I call them. They want to steal from you, take your food, since there are no longer any police, at least in these parts.
How do you deal with people trying to steal the food that you grow?
I kill them.
Is that what you were an inmate before for killing?
No. Well, yeah, I guess. I got in a fight with this one guy in a bar. We had few too many drinks. He went outside and pushed my motorcycle to the ground. And one thing you don't do, you never touch a man's bike. You can punch a man, sure thing, but be my guest. But throw a man's Harley over, and well, that's a death sentence. So I went in, stabbed him in the neck. I didn't mean for the guy to die. I just wanted to give him a flesh wound and a hospital stay that will make him think twice about ever touching my bike. But then he did wind up dying. And then they put me in the slammer. That was back in 2014.
How long were you sentenced for?
A very long time.
How did you get out early?
It was during the 2022 pandemic. They had released most of the druggies and the white collar guys during that previous pandemic, the ones with non-violent offenses, but all of us hardcore violent offenders, we were kept behind bars. Most of us died in there from the SARS, but not all. And then most of the guards died. Each day there were fewer and fewer of them showing up, so it got bad. There was no longer any food to feed us. And then the prisoners that died in their cells, they just left them there to rot, not getting rid of the bodies or anything. And one day, no guards showed up at all. And then the power went out. I thought we were going to die. No one there to feed us or let us out. But then maybe a few weeks after the power went out, the doors opened. A family member of one of the guys locked up came there looking for him and realized the prison had been abandoned and no one was caring for or looking out for us. That kind man knew the grace of our Lord Jesus and let us out.
What did you do then?
My first impulse was to leave, to look for my old girlfriend, even my mom. But I was hungry. That'll happen after weeks with just rats to eat. So I went and I looked for food. There was no food in the prison, so I went with some of the other inmates into a nearby town. That town looked deserted, so we split up, went to the houses, see if we could find anything to eat. We were really hungry.
Did you find anything?
No, not that day. When I met back up with one of the other fellows, one of them goes to me and says, "Jeffrey, found something better than food."
What did he find?
He takes me and the other guys into this house and opens the door, and we see a lady. He had assaulted her and then killed her and ate part of her face, and her body was just laying there in a pool of blood. Blood is everywhere. It's leaking from her head and even from her, what was left of her face, just all torn up and looked like she had seen a ghost. And he looks at us and smiles and tells us how good it felt and that he kept some of the leftovers for us.
What did you do?
I may have stabbed a guy in the neck once, but that was different. This guy didn't deserve to be out in the world. And I think the other prisoners with me, we had done our time. We had changed. But this guy wasn't. We looked at each other and we knew what we had to do.
And what did you do?
The other guys took him by the arms and I held him down. He screamed, he fought and resisted. And then I got up on top of him and took my hands just like this. And I strangled that son of a bitch and didn't let go until his face turned blue and I knew he was dead. We then buried that poor lady he murdered, gave her a proper burial, and left his body in that house and burned it down.
How did you eventually come to find the house and farmland you live in?
After that, the other inmates and I split up, went our separate ways, looking for food or old family members that may have survived the whole mess or whatnot. And so I headed to Memphis, Tennessee, where my old girlfriend lived, and hoping to find a meal or two along the way.
How long did you go without food?
Not long. I eventually found a dead possum while walking towards Memphis. At least I thought it was dead. Never can tell with those possums. And cooked it over a campfire. It didn't exactly taste very good, but when a man's hungry, taste is the last thing on your mind. Hunger, real hunger, is a thing few people experienced before the pandemics, but when you get the hunger, as they call it, there isn't anything you wouldn't do, anything you wouldn't eat, to put that burning fire in your belly out.
What happened after that?
I came across one of the roadblocks and the one certain towns set up so others couldn't come in and bring SARS, and I told them my story about how I'd come from prison and how I was hungry and just trying to get to Memphis. These guys there at first told me to go away, but when I told them that I was just trying to go to Memphis, one of them opened up and told me not to go to Memphis. But mostly everyone there was dead from SARS-22. That it would be a death sentence to walk in there. And that one guy, he was a former judge, now a person protecting the road, and told me if I protected this road, protected that town they lived in, that it helped me find a house and a farm outside town, and my sentence will be commuted and I'll be able to live a free man as long as I help protect the community. And so I stayed. I stayed here for the last 7 years.
What happened after that?
I took over watching the road the first couple of years, making sure people didn't get into town while avoiding people that lived there. But somehow, even though we protected that road, SARS-24 got in. Maybe a bird or a bat or something that was something else that was brought in. Maybe it was even one of those nasty possums. And everyone in that town died in 2024. And I was the only one left. I've been here since grow my own crops, keep them to myself. It helped that the power and internet and the phones came back on last year. It isn't the best life. It gets real lonely at times. But at least I made up for past wrongs. And at least I'm not hungry. And at least I'm not dead.